Morning. My PowerPoint presentation this week for week 3 is on autoimmune diseases. Definition of autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune diseases are health conditions that happen when your immune system attacks your body instead of defending it like it should. Healthcare providers sometimes also call them autoimmune disorders. Areas of the body affected. The effects of autoimmune diseases, they can impact major systems throughout your body that severely hinders normal function when they're not operating normally. Some of those areas include, it might be your joints, your muscles, blood vessels, your GI tract, digestive system, endocrine system, your nervous system. Those are pretty major operating systems to your body. So having an autoimmune disease can have pretty severe impacts to your function in daily life. Some statistics, autoimmune diseases, they're actually pretty common. They affect more than 23.5 million people in the US. So if you average that, it's about 1 in every 15 people that have an autoimmune disease. And out of those 1 in every 15 people that have an autoimmune disease, it's one of the over 100 types of them that are out there. I found that pretty interesting that there's over 100 different types of autoimmune diseases that exist. It's a large number. So just some of the types. This isn't the whole list. Some of the common ones that you might hear are thyroid disease, Graves' disease, Sjogren's syndrome, psoriasis, lupus, celiac disease, Crohn's disease, vitiligo, Guillain-Barré syndrome. Differences in male versus females. So females are more prone to having autoimmune diseases. There's a study published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation, and out of the 18 of 20 most common autoimmune diseases, 67% of them are in women. So that's like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, MS, lupus. That 18 out of 20 of those, they were more prevalent for females than males. That was pretty interesting. And then if you have a family history of an autoimmune disease, you're more susceptible in developing one in your life. It was after my third child, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, hypothyroidism. They found a nodule on my neck, and so I have thyroid disease. And unfortunately, one of my children now at a young age has been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. She does have vitiligo. As for cultural differences with autoimmune diseases, I was kind of shocked to see that there's actually a lack of I don't want to say information out there, but credible studies or sources that they can go back to that highlights the geographic differences for autoimmune diseases. So like Western European cultures, it's well documented, but if you go to the eastern side of the country, it's an underdeveloped region. They don't have rheumatologists. They don't have some of the access to medical care that we have here. So there's a lack of documentation or diagnosis in other countries. So that might contribute to the fact that there's just, it's not apples to apples saying it's, more prevalent in this region or with these type of ethnicities. It's there's just a lack of documentation out there. For long-term care for autoimmune diseases, since they're incurable, the best thing you can do is be proactive in managing them, and that's my personal opinion. But it's a lot of these deal with inflammation. Most of these autoimmune diseases have inflammatory symptoms, and so it's a lifestyle change for you, adapting to that if you want to keep the symptoms minimized and at bay. And a great deal of these diseases also you do have to manage with a prescription or medication, and it's just what you have to do. But so I think it's really important to, be taking things like vitamins, turmeric, it's anti-inflammatory, any type of supplements that have anti-inflammatory properties. Modifying your food intake or your diet, things that aren't highly processed or high in sugar to be causing that excess inflammation. It's really a mindset flip that you need to be thinking about. And then obviously continue to see your doctor for your routine checkups and your lab work. I'm really good about monitoring my numbers, my symptoms, advocating for myself. And if that see something, say something, or if you feel something isn't right, I'll call my doctor up and say, hey, I know we just did labs 4 months ago, but something is off. Can I please get another lab draw? And they'll go, oh, yep, this, they'll put the order in, and then they might find one of my numbers shifted, and we might have to do some tweaking with my thyroid medication. But I'd rather do that than let it go like a year and kind of suffer through some of those symptoms. So medication and prevention, as I mentioned, there's a good deal of those 100 autoimmune diseases out there that do require medication for support. In particular, like my thyroid disease, I have to take Synthroid. You can, levothyroxine's a generic. I take Synthroid, but it's a pill at 6 o'clock every single morning for the rest of my life. I have to take on an empty stomach with 8 ounces of water, an hour with no food, or your thyroid, which is really one of the powerhouses of your body. It won't function properly without it. And so I'm pretty diligent about being structured about the time and how I take that medication. A discussion question for the class. So how do you show support to those who are struggling with an autoimmune disorder?